Hello and welcome back to Property Matters on Dublin South FM and on iPropertyRadio with myself, Carol Tallon. You can contact us on social media at iPropertyRadio or email hello@iPropertyRadio.com. This week, I'm joined by Lorraine Scully, Associate Director and Sales Manager with Sherry FitzGerald in Galway. Lorraine, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Carol. Lovely to be here and thanks for having me.
No, I'm delighted. Sherry FitzGerald in Galway has had a good year, a good start to the year.
We did. We had a great start. We won Branch of the Year in Sherry FitzGerald in the overall company this year. So it just announced there in January. So we were delighted to win it. We're 25 years here in Galway and we've never won it. Now we've often been there or thereabouts, but it's great. It's absolutely great to win it. So we're delighted.
Oh, well, congratulations to all your team. And to be honest, obviously we're huge fans of Sherry FitzGerald here, and I know they really raised the bar for residential real estate in Ireland. So coming first on that is a very high bar indeed. So well done. Delighted to see that.
It sure is. And thanks so much for that. Yeah, it's great.
And of course, that's not just the sales team there. Actually, you have a diverse range of offering.
We do. So we have, we're primarily sales. So there's 6 of us here in the sales team. It's headed up by Tony Kavanagh. And as you said, I'm the sales manager and branch manager here in the office. But we have a lettings team as well, and they do lettings and property management. So that's headed up by Linda McCallion, and she has 4 staff there on her team. And they have a lot of managed properties on their books, and they do managed and obviously let only properties as well. We have a new homes team that's led by Patrick Cormacan, and himself and Avril look after all the new homes. So they're very busy at the minute. Actually, they've quite a few schemes going on at the minute. So that's our new homes team, but we also have financial services in our office as well. So that's headed up by Noreen McKenzie, and she has 2 guys working with her here at the minute, and that's busy too. So we cover everything really here in Galway in our office. So it's a busy office, and we have a great team. We all get on really well. It's lovely, great working environment here. Yeah.
Very good, very good. And we'll definitely touch base with your new homes team over the next couple of months, because it's really interesting to see the delivery that's planned on the pipeline for Galway and the region over the next 12 months. So that's definitely something.
Absolutely. Paddy, would be delighted to talk to you on that.
Fantastic. But today we're going to talk about something that I think it can be overwhelming for people at the start. So really, we want to help people who might be considering selling their home, or they're just in the space of thinking about it, but maybe haven't started yet. Maybe they've earmarked 2023 as the year either to sell their home and make a move. So maybe first of all, start by telling me, what kind of start have you had to the year in terms of prospective sellers? Is this a busy time for Galway?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, as we just touched on, we had a great 2022, winning Branch of the Year, but it was a really, really busy year for us. Very active, like the last 12 months. Now the year Galway is still active, obviously. The stock is an issue. I suppose it started off a little bit quieter on the stock side of things, but there's really good buyers out there. And obviously the interest rate hike as well, has had its challenges, but to be honest, the lack of supply is holding up the market quite well in Galway at the minute, so look, we expect it to be a good year going forward. We've a lot of stock earmarked. Well, not a lot, but we've a bit of stock earmarked to come on in the next few months. That it'll all sell really well. So, there's good buyers out there, and they're all loan approved, or a lot of them, ready to go and want to get something, so.
Very good. In terms of, low stock, obviously that's an issue nationwide. Yeah. But 2022 was a better year for most areas, that there was actually an improvement in the stock of secondhand homes. So was that true of Galway also?
Yeah, absolutely. We had a really big year-on-year growth in Galway last year. So there was much more stock available. It all sold quite well. It was a good year. It was a really good year for prices as well, because there was a lot of people buying, and the year before was quite tight in stock. To be honest, 2021 was quite tight, but 2022 was good, which was why we had good market share growth in Galway in 2022 as well, so so look, hopefully we can keep it up this year and that we can get in more stock, but definitely 2022 is a good year for stock in Galway.
It used to be the case, and I know a lot of the seasonality went out of the property market at the last crash. But it was always the case that, you'd get into the first few weeks of January and then you'd start to hear from the sellers who were thinking about selling their home at some point during the year. Does that still happen?
We feel it's going to happen this year. Like we've a bit of stock that's going to be coming on in March. So, and that's your seasonal time, like your springtime, your March time. So we have a few properties earmarked to come on now in March. So this year, I think it will be seasonal again. The thing I suppose that's a bit of a challenge for us at the minute is the rent freeze. So tenants cannot leave their properties now or don't have to leave their properties until April. So there's a lot of landlords looking to sell, but obviously they have to wait till the 31st of March to get the tenants out. So, and then they may have to issue them notice on the 31st of March, which will be 3 months minimum notice for tenants now. So, so look at that. That's an issue, I suppose, landlords trying to get tenants out so they can put their properties on the market. But as the year goes on, those properties will free up and hopefully they'll come to the market then at that stage.
I remember early research from your colleague in Dublin, Marion, back in 2016, 17, 18, talking about the exodus of landlords from the marketplace. And it feels like that has been an issue that policymakers are aware of, but nothing really has been done, despite rhetoric saying we must do something to stem the flow of landlords out of the market and to attract a new cohort of landlords, private landlords into the market. That just hasn't happened. The policies have been increasingly, burdensome, over-regulation, and lack of balance between the rights and responsibilities of both tenants and landlords. So, that's really gone in the wrong direction for the marketplace. So, would you know what kind of proportion of the sellers you're dealing with at the moment? Would you kind of even have a rough breakdown of how many of those or what proportion of those are investors leaving the market?
I don't know off the top of my head, to be honest, Carol. But there was quite a few last year, to be honest. And I've been talking to a few this year who were just waiting on the 31st of March, to hit, and then obviously they'll sell their properties. Like a lot of landlords are, I suppose they're getting fed up of all the regulations and they are looking to get out. But there's a certain amount of landlords as well that if they sell, they don't know what they're going to do with their money, so they're deciding to hold on to it also, because, what are they going to, they don't know what they're going to invest in if they do sell. So, we have a mix of it here in Galway, but there's definitely landlords that are getting out.
Okay, and the other homeowners who are selling up, are they selling up to to trade up or to trade down within the region, or are they leaving Galway?
Most of them in the region, to be honest. Like a lot of them, have grown out of their homes and they need the extra bedroom or extra room downstairs, be it playroom, study, or just an extra room for people. So it's a lot of people trying to trade up. So they might be selling their 3 and 4 bed semi, looking for 3 and 4 or 5 bed detached. So we have a lot of that. And then we've a very healthy high-end market here in Galway. Like there's a lot of people looking to buy in the higher, and that market hasn't really been affected. Like we find there's a lot of people looking to buy in the high end, and they have the money, and the values of the high end are really holding their own, because they want to buy in certain areas, the more expensive areas, I suppose, in the cities, and they want to buy in those areas. So there's a lot of people buying those areas too.
What's considered high end? What would be the price bracket that makes it high end in Galway?
I suppose anything above like 600,000-700,000, and obviously you can go, we had 2 very good sales in Galway last year. One was 2.5 million and one was 1.25 million. So, but that's not every year now. You don't have those sales in Galway every year. But we had quite a few good sales like that in Galway, and we do sell a lot of the high end stuff as well in Galway, which is great.
Very good. So it sounds like from the profile of people who are selling now and what secondhand stock is likely to come to the market, it sounds like March might be an opportune time for first time buyers in Galway.
Yeah, it will.
So you mentioned that you have some really good buyers. That's a great description, because I presume by really good you mean really ready buyers, that they're organized and they're all set up. But actually, I think that over the last 10 years and maybe even a little less, I think buyers have gotten really good at being ready. You know, they know not to start house hunting until they have their approval in principle. And, you know, I think they've gotten much better than they were 20 years ago when I was, when I was in the marketplace. But actually, are sellers as good? Because delays happen on both sides of the transaction.
Yeah, it's very true. The buyers are very good, and I think COVID had a lot to do with that, because during COVID you couldn't view until you had your loan approval and that, and I think that people are now, like, they have the loan approval coming to meet us much more so than they used to, years ago. But sellers, like, that's a very good point. And sellers, like, we'd meet a seller obviously at a market appraisal. So your initial meeting with the seller, you're giving them the value of your house, but you'll sit them down and you'll talk them through the stages, and what they need to do to prepare themselves to go to the market. And, like, there's quite a lot in it, so there's a lot that people wouldn't have realized. Like we will sit down and we'll talk them through, first off, I suppose, the presentation of their house. And obviously the nicer your house is, the more money it will get when it goes to the market. And people don't want to be spending money on doing up houses at the minute, so they'd prefer to get a really nice, well finished house. So if your house needs a lick of paint, or if there's a leak in the bathroom or whatever, fix it, is what we would always say before you put it to the market. So paint it, fix your leaks, declutter. You're going to be leaving your house anyway, so it's important to declutter. Decluttering is good for the buyer mentally as well, because it gets them in that space where they're packing up to go, so they're mentally preparing to leave the house. But also then, from a viewing point of view, like, move furniture around if you need to move it around, so that when buyers come in, they can flow quite freely through the house. I'd always say as well, put door stoppers in your doors, so that that they don't have to be touching anything as they're going around. They just freely walk through the house. So now there's a fine line, because you want to keep it homely also. So you don't want to take out too much stuff that it just looks bare. So the bedrooms are important too, to kind of take a lot of the clutter out of the bedrooms and just leave your bed, your lockers, nice duvets, things like that. And the other thing that's important is open up blinds, and like, net curtains are a no-go in like, take them down, let in the light, so make your house bright, and obviously clutter free. That's very important.
How much would you kind of take a technical or a technology approach to this? So do you offer 3D videos and walkthroughs, things like that?
We will if we need to, but walkthroughs are kind of gone, to be honest. Like, we will if we have to. So if there's a client abroad, we'll absolutely do that. But we get professional photos taken, and to be honest, we find they're enough. The professional photos. It depends on the property, to be honest, Carol, too, because if it's something that's like on the lake or on the front of the sea, and you do nice drone videos and things like that. So it just depends on the property, but most properties, professional photos is usually sufficient, to be honest.
Do you engage in staging much? Because I know it's something we spoke to Natasha Rockett-Devine recently of the Interiors Nerds Studio, and she has a new book coming out. But part of her business is around property staging, and she's worked previously in the US, where it's just a vital step of the listing process. Whereas in Ireland, it really isn't. And I know, kind of over the last number of years, I've possibly battled with estate agents who, not only do they not get professional photographs done, but they might have to be reminded to pull the bed cover over the bed, make the bed before you take the photograph. And there's some, like, genuinely, I think there's some really poor quality photographs going up on daft by estate agents, which I just can't understand in this day and age at all. I mean, even professional photographs are great, but you don't need to get them done if you don't have them. You can still make an effort to make a house presentable. And in some cases, that's just not happening. The standard is quite poor, the offering, if you look at daft.
No, it really is. And like, I've seen them, like, I've seen those photos, and they're shocking, to be honest. But we don't use stagers, but we will give all the advice and tell them what they need to do to, like, they're more or less staging it themselves, to be honest. But like, we'll be there with the photographer. Our photographer will move things around, if he needs to, to stage the property as such. But like, curb appeal is huge. So like, you need to have a nice, like your front, if the front of your house needs to be painted. Like, the photo of your house is going to be everywhere. If your marketing is done correctly, it's going to be everywhere. So you need it to look nice. You need people to pick up the phone and ring you and say, God, that house looks lovely. Can we book a viewing of that? So staging is hugely important, but we don't like employ stagers as such. We give people the advice ourselves. Yeah.
And look, I think most people would understand, and most sellers would be motivated to get the most out of their sale. And that means presenting their property in a certain way. It's amazing for all of our talk about, PropTech and the technology solutions that make things better. We still always come back to the old fashioned adage of you've one shot to make a first impression. And
Absolutely.
and I can remember, years ago, and certainly at the height of the Celtic Tiger, people weren't bothered about doing anything because anything would sell, and it didn't really impact your price. And I think we got into some really bad habits at that time. And then when the market started to slow, you had people carrying out work, maybe pricing downwards and carrying out work, but it was very difficult to get the same. There's only one cohort of buyers at any given time in the market. It's very hard to get them to come back to the same property if an opinion has already been established.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it really is that. But look, we talked about delays. I think one of the most frustrating parts of the marketplace for buyers and sellers, obviously other than the lack of stock at the moment, is around the conveyancing delays.
Yes.
And there's lots of technology solution providers in Ireland and the UK trying to speed things up. But I think that the quickest we've gotten to is 7 weeks. This is, and 7 weeks would be an amazingly fast transaction. We're still regularly looking at 12 to 16 weeks and beyond. So is there anything that sellers can do to improve that and add a bit of certainty to the transaction?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think particularly around, let's say, houses out the country. So, when I'm going to do a market appraisal in a house out the country, I'll obviously bring my laptop, but I'll have Land Direct open. And I don't know if you've used Land Direct, but so you'll see, like, you put in your property and you'll see your map, like your land registry map. If it's correct, great. It's correct. If it's not correct, you need to get an engineer in to check that out. And it can take weeks if that's wrong, and it needs to be resolved. So that's the first thing we would do. And then the second thing people should do is look at their planning and check their planning. Like, was their house built to what it says in the planning, in your planning documents? So, like, I have a sale recently, and they put in an extra window. Let's say they also put they changed the driveway, so it should have been a straight driveway, but it's a curved driveway. They moved the septic tank. There's a few things like that, and like in paper, when they were building this house, they probably never thought they were going to ever sell it, so it was never really a big deal. But it's when you come to selling it, that's when it's an issue. So you need to, obviously, if you've had it on an extension as well, so you're allowed to add 40 square meters without getting planning once it's on the ground floor and to the back. But some people put it to the side, needs planning, or they add 2 levels, needs planning, but they don't realize this. So you need to get, if your planning is correct, you need to get if your extension is correct, you need to get a cert of exemption to say that it is exempt from planning and it's correct. If it's not correct, you need to check your cert of compliance. You may or may not have one, and then you may or may not need to get retention. So retention is like this. I have a lot of sales at the minute that are going through retention, because until an engineer comes in to survey the property for the purchaser, the vendors don't really know about it, that it needs retention. So they need to, we will get this checked beforehand, or ask the vendor, to check this beforehand and make sure that everything is in order, that planning is all in order, so that the sale can go through. Your solicitor has a huge role to play here as well, obviously, because they will check the documents as well for their vendors. They need to get title deeds. That's the other thing. Title deeds can take 4 to 6 weeks to get from the bank. So you need to be getting them, when you're putting the property on the market for sale, you need to be getting those title documents, like not going sale agreed and then looking for your title documents, because it's a delay of 6 weeks before you can send out a contract. So there's definitely things a vendor can do before they put the property on the market to get them ready, so that when the property goes sale agreed, they can send out a contract and the sale can close, within the usual 6, 8, 12 weeks of it going sale agreed, because they're prepared, so it's really, really important to be prepared.
And one thing I've noticed over the last number of years is that buyers are really savvy. You know, they know the marketplace, they know things inside out. Are sellers, because I'd imagine for some sellers, they're kind of sitting pretty in their house, maybe never planning to leave. So a lot of what's been happening, say, in terms of regulations like the BER certs, just might have passed them by because they just didn't think it would be important.
Yes, yeah. And they like, so some vendors are very clued in and they obviously are very on top of things and they're very organized, you know, and then you get some that aren't, but they just don't know, you know, they're not in the market like we are, which is why it's important obviously to get us in early so that we can talk you through all these steps and give you all the advice of things you need to do before you put your property on the market. But I suppose it's up to us to educate them, really, isn't it? To tell them what they need to do.
Lorraine, one of the things certainly I miss from almost 2 decades ago of going in and out to houses every day, you know, you meet great characters, but you can see some really interesting things. And I have come across, you know, farm animals in houses and lots of other things. You know, what kind of unusual things have you come across over your time?
I'm nearly 20 years in the business. You put me on the spot. What have I've come across all sorts of things. Oh God, I can't think, Carol.
See, that tells me you're being very loyal to your sellers. That's very generous of you, because I have no doubt, you know, I can actually remember, and I would have worked more with buyers, and I remember one day with an estate agent showing somebody around the house, the buyer who we had brought there. Now, this is going back 20 years ago, so the etiquette maybe wasn't so sophisticated, but they hopped into the bathtub. And the estate agent was horrified. I was horrified. And they didn't do it in a joking way. They did it in a very annoying and knocking stuff down and all. And, you know, there's some being, you know, there can be some poor behavior, and there's a certain etiquette when you're viewing somebody's home, like what you should open and what you shouldn't open for checking storage space. And I've seen people breach that etiquette on occasion, but I hope we're moving into a more sophisticated time in the market.
I've just thought of one when you were mentioning the bathtub. I remember going into a rented house once, and there was a couple in a bedroom as we were walking into the house. So we had to just wait, I suppose, should I just say, until they were ready.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think when you work in property, it is a snapshot of real life, and that's exactly it. It is a snapshot of real life.
Yeah.
So I suppose a final word of advice for anyone who's thinking of bringing their home to the market in and around the Galway city and area over the next year. What's kind of the best advice?
Well, I'd say talk to your agent, Sherry FitzGerald, earlier, if possible. So, like, get us in early. We'll give you all the advice. We'll tell you what you need. Like, if you need to get, let's say, retention for planning or something like that, it's going to take 3 months. You know, so if you're planning on selling, you know, now, then and obviously your house needs retention, you're 3 months delayed. You know, so you know, I get us in early, and we can go through everything with you, I suppose, is the point. Yeah,
that's great advice. And look, I think it's really important to know that you have the buyers there who are waiting, finance approved, ready to go. Yes. And you know, it's really exciting when you are helping people move to the next stage of their life, when they're moving into maybe a larger home for their expanding family, and then you get to see the next generation coming into that home and start all over again. You know, it is, you know, certainly property can be a difficult and a challenging industry, but actually there's some really positive notes. And you know, recently we spoke with the Director of Services in Mayo County Council, and you know, he talked about his role in housing. And obviously, you know, we're talking about doing things for individuals. You know, he's talking about trying to house a whole county, and you know, he did talk about those moments when people are being given keys to their new homes, what is going to be their home. And you know, there are moments, there are uplifting moments there that do make the challenges worthwhile. And maybe they're the things that we don't talk a lot about in the media because there's so much negative sentiment, you know, just around the challenges of the industry, which almost all come back to lack of supply. But there are some really shining moments in between, and it's important to keep those in mind.
Absolutely. Like, I absolutely love my job. Like today I handed out 3 sets of keys to three different age groups of people. And it's lovely. It's lovely to see that, you know, and, you know, it's been a challenge for them along the way. It's not an easy thing moving house. It's very stressful for some people, but if you're really organized, we make it a lot less, it will make it a lot less stressful for yourself, so.
Oh, that's a gorgeous note to finish on. We'll round out your day having handed out kind of 3 sets of keys to 3 different families that will be starting their journey. So that's amazing. Thank you so much. That was lovely just to get an insight into the Galway market, but also to give some advice to people who might be thinking of selling, and maybe give some hope to first-time buyers who will be looking to buy in the Galway market from March on, so they know where to go as a first point of contact.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Carol, for having me.
My pleasure. That was Lorraine Scully, Associate Director and Sales Manager, Sherry FitzGerald in Galway. We need to take a quick break now. Stay tuned.